Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of CPAC Live. We have a great show for you today, but I want to first tell you that on Friday, I'm going to be up in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, with gathering with the great Republicans of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and I'm going to be speaking at their annual dinner. So if anybody's in the Pennsylvania region and wants to come by and say hi, I know they'd love to have you. I'm sure you can find out all the information on the Republican Party of Pennsylvania's website. We're also going to be in North Carolina, which we're really excited about. We've had several great CPACs, one in Wisconsin, one in Pennsylvania, and now we're going to be in North Carolina. And we want to talk to two great North Carolinians. I hope I'm saying that right. I'm pretty sure I am. Who can talk to us about this. The chairman of the party, Michael Whatley, who's a great longtime friend of mine, is doing a great job with the party. But first off, we've got a great conservative, Congressman Mark Walker. Congressman, thanks for joining us on CPAC Live.
Hey, Matt, it's good to be with you. Thanks for the great work you guys are doing.
Yeah, and you and I happened to be in the same location as we were watching the debate last night. Give us your overall view of the debate, and will it affect the horse race in North Carolina, which is such an important state?
Well, yeah, two questions there. It was certainly an impactful debate. I believe the president was working hard to make his points across, get them across to Joe Biden. I do believe, as I was watching Ari Fleischer today, there are some things maybe the president could give Joe Biden a little bit more time to flail, for lack of better expression. But this is not the first time that we've thought Donald Trump didn't exactly perform his best at a debate, only to see him wax the table. And we think that's what's happening in North Carolina. We think he's going to continue to build momentum. We feel like he's up by 2 or 3 points, which obviously helps our statewide candidates. But I hope he continues to point out Joe Biden is the fraud in all this. One of the quick points I want to make: if you go back the last 10 years, the last decade that Joe Biden was in the U.S. Senate, you want to talk about taxes or charitable giving? I think he gave an average of $369 a year, with a salary of more than $300,000. To me, the measure of someone, Matt, is not what they have to or forced to give back to the government, but it's how they help their fellow man. Joe Biden can talk the game, but his actions and his lifestyle haven't lived up to it.
You know, the other thing that's interesting is, there's all this talk about the president's taxes, this felony crime of releasing an individual's taxes. Why does this only seem to happen to Republicans? It always seems like Republican politicians get prosecuted to the max, and we had the Tea Party folks that had all their private and confidential information made public. We had the people that gave to the marriage proposition in California. Somehow all of their information gets made public. And now you have Donald Trump, his taxes, even though they're not even completed, because he's in a constant state of being audited, as a lot of wealthy people are. It seems like there's been a release of his taxes. Why does the game only seem to play on one side of the road here?
One of the things the president should deserve a lot of credit over the last 4 years is how he has exposed the swamp in these agencies, whether it's the IRS, the DOJ. He has pulled back some layers. We didn't even put it together 10 years ago when we saw some of these attacks going after the Tea Party, Republicans, conservative groups. But more and more, we have seen just how deep these is entrenched. These hands that are entrenched into the federal government to attack conservative groups, to quiet them, to silence them, because they know that these folks are effective in reaching out to really reveal the damaging corruption that has become so many places in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right, and I completely agree with you. Now, you're going to be with us at our CPAC North Carolina in Greensboro. Are we going to the right place in North Carolina? Tell us about this region of the state and tell us what's going on in North Carolina.
Absolutely. You're going right into central North Carolina, the heart of the triad. You may have to get a little bit of barbecue. One of the worst Senate deaths we have ever seen is the Democratic candidate, Cal Cunningham. He posted a picture of himself 2 nights ago with hot dog buns and hamburger buns talking about North Carolina barbecue. That was an egregious offense. That may end up costing him 2 or 3 points right there. But you are, it's the Tri area, High Point, Greensboro, Winston-Salem, a lot of wonderful people, and they are so excited that you and CPAC are coming for a live event right there, right outside Greensboro, North Carolina.
Well, that's great. And so, what do the people of North Carolina, what do they care about? Is it economic issues? Are they worried about what's going on in these conversations and this violence around race and rioting in our big cities? Is it the pandemic? What's going on? What's on the minds of people in North Carolina?
So much small business talk. If you look at the triad historically, this was a place and time where it really thrived around furniture, textiles, even tobacco some, but we've seen that all go away. So small businesses and economic issues are very important to these folks. And what they have seen the president do for small businesses, record pace unemployment throughout the state of North Carolina, even though we have a pretty radical left governor, some of the federal policies that the president and Congress enacted has really made a huge impact, and we're seeing record recovery right now. That's going to be one of the main focuses there. Also, the law and order aspect. A lot of unrest in places like Greensboro. A lot of cities, businesses, downtown city businesses in Greensboro, still boarded up, still not reopened. That's a concern for the people there as well.
So you have businesses that are still not open. How about schools and churches? Is it a kind of a mixed bag?
It's horrific. It's a mixed bag of just suffering for people. We got a call 2 nights ago. My 14-year-old who's getting ready to go to high school, she will not be allowed to go back to school this year. They're in the Guilford County area, which is where you'll be. In fact, she got a call that says she'll go back for 2 days starting January, 2 days per week. It's a mess. People are frustrated. They want a routine. They want the system. They want some normalcy. And they believe and know that Joe Biden is not the person. We even saw that last night. He's promised. What does he promise? He promised more masks and more shutdowns.
Yeah, no, that's right. He kind of seems to like to go back and forth on these things. I think he kind of campaigns like from a time before we had the internet and could see everything because it's like he can tell one group one thing, another group another.
No question. The fact I know city councilmen and others, anybody can usually name a law enforcement support. The fact that you can't, you're running for president, not for soul and water. No offense to my friends running for soul and water, but the fact in the country of 340 million people with all these different law agencies, you can't name even one. That's pretty telling.
Yeah, you might not have one. Now, over what looks like to be your left shoulder is one of my favorite American presidents, Abraham Lincoln, if I've got that right. Last night, Chris Wallace asked what I viewed to be a very unfair question of the president. It's always the Republican that has to kind of flagellate themselves to say that they're not a racist, where Joe Biden isn't forced to try to defend this idea of defunding the cops, trying to criticize the extremism and the Marxism of the Black Lives Matter Incorporated movement, not the people that want racial harmony, but the people that are creating agitation in our major cities. Why is Republicans, when someone like Abraham Lincoln was our standard bearer, the Republican Party was established to fight slavery. It's the Democratic Party that then came back with this idea of Jim Crow, where they could kind of keep segregation, even though we had already passed 3 constitutional amendments to give blacks full rights. How come we're on the defense on questions of race when the Democratic Party's history and their current policies are completely destructive?
And not just the Democratic Party's history, Joe Biden's history. He's the godfather of mass incarceration. If you look at some of the things that he has done, he didn't just co-sponsor, he wrote this legislation. So the very people that the president and others are working hard to try to give a second chance, he's the one that's put him away for decades. And Kamala Harris did her job out in California. This is something I'm very passionate about because it is a fabrication, whoever's asking the question or framing it, to think Republicans are not the one leading on this. You had Van Jones. Listen to some of the people that are fair, at least taking a look at this. It is Republicans who've always led on it, such as the person over my shoulder, the President Abraham Lincoln. To this very day, Republicans are still the ones that are leading on this issue, not the Democrats. And I believe if people will give a second look and really look at the facts here, specifically at Joe Biden's record, they will find someone who's been anything. Look at his history as far as hanging out with Robert Byrd and some of the things that he said. This isn't just a one-off. This has been part of his history in his 47 years as a D.C. politician.
And maybe in his 47 years, having these positions actually worked for him politically, which is even more cynical. But this whole question about, you're right, about who's taking the lead on criminal justice reform, it's been people like yourself, Senator Mike Lee, obviously President Trump, and with the advice of Jared Kushner and others. Do you think that the media will ever get tired of making it seem like Donald Trump or other Republicans have animosity towards people of color, when during the Trump economy, we never saw so much economic opportunity for these folks. Families who do have loved ones who are incarcerated for nonviolent crimes feel great hope that they'll be able to see those loved ones again. And we have this idea of reforming our criminal justice system. Why, oh, why is it the Republican, and in this case, Donald Trump, that has to do more than the policy, which has been so helpful to these people in these political moments?
Yeah, Matt, that you framed that question, that's a problem where we are in our country, whether it's the media, whether it's our education, whether it's the arts and entertainment. Everybody tries to pitch this in a category, because if the Democrats, these radical leftists, if they lose that minority base, which they have been lying to for decades, then they don't have a place to go. So it's almost like they're clutching on to this last bastion. We must tell these lies in these communities. But once people, and some of these wonderful minority candidates that are coming out speaking the truth, once this begins to resonate, Democrats are done. Because once the truth gets out as far as who really is for individual liberty and opportunity for all the communities, one of the most racist things I see is these leftist Democrat politicians who literally are putting a ceiling on some of these communities when they can be doing so much more. That's the message that we have to continue to focus on.
So in North Carolina, I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit. Do you have an idea of how well the president will do with African-American voters?
Yeah, I think he will do better than, I think you have to go back to Richard Nixon. He may even top that. If my memory serves me correctly, I believe Richard Nixon was around the 18 to 20% line. There are some wonderful people like Clarence Henderson, who is a picture hanging in my office. He sat there at the Woolworth counter in 1960. He's out there advocating for the president. So many of these wonderful people who are saying, do not fall into the trap of more democratic, oppressive policies. Let's get behind the President Trump. So because of that, I'd put it in the high teens if you help me to a number right now.
Wow, I'm going to go look this up because that would be historic, high teens. That would be amazing in your state. Hey, Mark Walker, you do such a great job for your constituents in Congress. I know they're going to miss having you as their representative. I know that you have great things coming in your future, and you're not done with politics, and you're not done with trying to make a difference in society. We have very much enjoyed the camaraderie and our allied activities, the ACU, with you in your capacity as a member of Congress. And let's keep it going, okay?
We'll do it, Matt. Anytime I think you come from the same heart, it just makes it natural. So we appreciate all that you're doing as well.
Well, God bless you, sir, and thanks for joining us. And we really look forward to getting into your neighborhood in North Carolina for CPAC North Carolina on Saturday. Once again, you can go to cpac.org and reserve your spot at this event. We don't think the governor's going to arrest us. He certainly will have no reason to, but you never know in these crazy political times that we're in, and we look forward to being with you. And thanks for joining us, and we're going to be right back with the chairman of the North Carolina Party after this short break.
What do you believe about the science of climate change, and what will you do in the next 4 years to confront it?
I want crystal clean water and air. I want beautiful, clean air. We have now the lowest carbon. If you look at our numbers right now, we are doing phenomenally. But I haven't destroyed our businesses. Our businesses aren't put out of commission. If you look at the Paris Accord, it was a disaster from our standpoint. And people are actually very happy about what's going on because our businesses are doing well. As far as the fires are concerned, you need forest management in addition to everything else. The forest floors are loaded up with trees, dead trees that are years old, and they're like tinder, and leaves and everything else. You drop a cigarette in there, the whole forest burns down. You've got to have forest management. You've got to have cuts.
What do you believe about the science of climate change, sir?
I believe that we have to do everything we can to have immaculate air, immaculate water, and do whatever else we can that's good. You know, we're planting 1 billion trees, the Billion Tree Project, and it's very exciting for a lot of people.
Okay, I'm not going to soon forget the debate from last night. That was amazing to see. That's a bit of American political history. You know, Donald Trump has his way of communicating, and he certainly has his unique way of debating. I know it's not everybody's style, But man, he just was on offense the entire time. And I thought the thing I loved the most about his performance is I really think he had a good command of the major issues that are facing the country, which once again, that resonates with people who might not think they love every way in which he says it. But you can't argue with the fact that the president is like 110% at this job every moment of the day. And there's a lot of accomplishments he never even got to, like peace is breaking out in the Middle East. Who would have thought that? It was great to have Mark Walker on. We've been talking about CPAC North Carolina, which is going to be in Greensboro, North Carolina on Saturday. Go to conservative.org to reserve your ticket. And now we got the most important person in North Carolina to talk to now, the chairman of the Republican Party, Michael Whatley. Mr. Chairman, thanks for being with us on CPAC Live.
Hey, Matt, it's great to join you today, and we cannot wait to have you down on Saturday.
Now, people might not know this, but you and I have known each other a really long time, which means we're both getting to be old guys.
Yeah, no question. You know, I think the first time I met you on day 3 of the Florida recount, we were both skinny and had dark hair.
That does seem like a long time ago. And I have thought a lot about the recount recently. Seeing people like you during the recount was emotional because that was such a hard time. We were so exhausted. We had fought so hard, and then it wasn't over, and it looked like it could slip through our fingers. And the Republican Party did something interesting in the Florida recount. I know Dan Schneider, who's our executive director, and other people were involved as well. My wife was involved. I mean, it was like, a lot of great people. But it was one of the first times that the Republican Party said, no more.
Yeah.
We always back down. We always back off. We always try to be polite. We always say, well, let's win the next one. Richard Nixon didn't push his advantage in 1960 when the Kennedy family clearly stole that election. John Thune, when he ran for Senate the first time, clearly that election was stolen from him, and he didn't really press his advantage. Norm Coleman, basically had a Senate seat swiped for him. This happens all the time because all of these questions surround race. They surround opening up of polling stations, oftentimes in black precincts. Nobody wants to deny any legal person from voting. So it just puts us on, it seems like, as a party on defense, Chairman Whatley. And the Florida recount, we just said, no more. We're only counting legal ballots. And in that process, we realized there's a lot of times the military ballots don't even get counted.
Yeah, and it's interesting because that was really the first time that we saw Republicans fight, like you said. And that's really why it's so good to have President Trump. Even when he was candidate Trump, he's a fighter. And like you said in the debate last night, he did not have a typical debate. No, because he's a fighter and he's going to challenge people when they utter falsehoods. He's going to challenge debate moderators who are clearly in the tank for the other candidate. And we saw that all throughout 2016. He has said 100 times over, I'm not a traditional candidate. I'm a fighter. I'm going to fight for America. And I really see a lot of parallels between what we were doing in those courtrooms down in Florida all the way through those 36 days. And then what happened in 2016. And frankly, what we're gunning for right now in 2020. President Trump ended up the debate last night by saying we have got to be very, very careful with all of these absentee votes, with all of these mail-in votes, and with all of the lawyers that the Democrats are hiding to really try and throw up dust in the air and see what they can do to steal them out of these close, states that are going to be the key battlegrounds for it, places like Florida, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and obviously here in North Carolina.
So I don't know if the president explains it as clearly as he could to people who aren't very political, because, Biden, Chris Wallace, and all the rest of these Democrats try to make it sound like he's saying absentee voting is a problem. He's never said that absentee voting is a problem. They try to make him sound like a hypocrite because he obviously votes absentee just like President Bush did before him, because the president's going to be on the campaign trail. What he's alarmed at is the idea, and this in North Carolina, you would take a voter file that has lots, maybe 20, 25% inaccurate information on it, and you just blindly mail all those people, send them all a ballot, and all those ballots are now out. And it just creates high levels of potential fraud. All that fraud is criminal, but you're just increasing the chances that it'll happen.
Yeah, unfortunately, here in North Carolina, we have an absentee program that's been in place for a number of elections. We're very comfortable with it. We clearly are going to have more absentee ballot that we've had requested already that have already been turned in than we've seen in the past, and we're totally fine with that. We actually started the process of doing the absentee vote counts last night that came in, and we had observers that were at every one of our 100 counties, and we feel comfortable with that process. But it's amazing that we've seen lawsuit after lawsuit. We've seen a partisan board of elections that's trying to make changes. Even just last week, we saw a huge amendment that came through with changes to the absentee programs after 200,000 votes have already been cast via absentee. And so we filed a lawsuit. The Trump campaign and the RNC and a number of others have filed one lawsuit. Our state legislative leaders have filed a second lawsuit for it. Just because here they are trying again to throw up as much dirt and muck into the air and see what they can do to mess up those numbers. Now, fortunately, we think, here in North Carolina, we're going to win with the presidential race by a big enough margin that they're not going to be able to cheat their way to the win. But we've got to make sure that we're watching that very, very closely. In 2016, we actually had at 10:30 at night, the Durham County Board of Elections showed up with an extra 90,000 votes that they had forgotten to count earlier in the process. And lo and behold, our governor, Pat McCrory, lost by about 10,000 votes there. So, it is a matter of across the country, the Democrats' playbook is sue, obfuscate, do what you can to change the rules, get everything into court and argue. And then even if you lose in court, you say that the courts are rigged and the process is rigged, and you try to invalidate the election.
Yeah, and the thing is it seems like the easiest bit of voter fraud to prove is when someone votes in two jurisdictions. That seems like when you might have the same person dead to rights. Maybe it's a college student voting at the precinct near the campus and then also voting at home. It gets a lot more nebulous when you have people, when the signature match has been dumbed down, when you didn't have to have an ID to request the ballot, when you're not voting for a dead person. Obviously, that's the Chicago 1960 very truthful thing that occurred. So voter fraud is a lot harder thing to prove. I know people in the liberal media like to say, I should just say media, like to say, oh, well, all these smart people in these university settings looked at this and there's very little fraud. That's not right. What they're saying is there's very little convictions because it's actually a difficult thing, or at least can be hard after the fact to put the facts together that would rise to the level of being able to convict somebody.
Yeah, no, there's absolutely no question about it. And we've even seen here in North Carolina a number of cases that have been brought by the U.S. Attorney in the Middle District against people who voted twice or who clearly were voting fraudulently for it. And again, I think that as long as we have the presidential race and some of our other key races are going to be outside the margin, then we're not going to necessarily have those rise to the level of being able to change the election. And so what we're doing here in North Carolina is making sure that we've got our voter outreach at levels are at all-time records. We've got tens of thousands of volunteers that we've already brought on board and recruited and trained. We've actually recruited over 550 attorneys across the state that are on standby in every one of our 100 counties to make sure that the process is going to go forward. But what we really want to do is make sure that we've got President Trump at the top of the ticket. We've got Dan Forest, who's running to replace our Governor Cooper, who is specializing in lockdowns all across North Carolina and our economy. And then Tom Tillis, who obviously is a member of the Judiciary Committee, is going to be a key factor on the Supreme Court nomination and a key factor in making sure that the Republicans are going to be able to keep the Senate. So, we really are the eye of the hurricane down here in North Carolina. But there is no better place to be a Republican every day. I'll tell you that.
Okay, so if people watching this show or people in our CPAC community want to help you in your great efforts, because as they can tell by listening to you, you're old school. You're taking care of all those little concerns, which a chairman should, just in case all hell does break loose. How can folks help you?
Yeah, so we've got a number of different things that we can do. The first and foremost is not just vote for yourself, but make sure that you have a conversation with a friend, a family member, a coworker, or a colleague. In North Carolina, we call it the rule of 5 and 6. Every 5-minute conversation that you have with an undecided voter, meaning a person who's not sure whether they're going to vote or who they're going to vote for, that person is 6% more likely to actually go vote and vote for your candidate. So what we're doing is we're activating all of our volunteers and all of our Republican voters to go out and have that 5-minute conversation with as many people as we can. And then you can recruit other volunteers. You can come in and volunteer for us at NCGOP, where we can put you on the teams that are going out and knocking on doors or making phone calls. And you can find out how to volunteer at our website, ncgop.org. And then lastly, of course, financially, people are coming in. We have broken every finance record we've ever had in North Carolina, particularly with our small dollar donations that are coming in via mail or coming in online, just because everybody is so excited about this cycle. And one of the things that we really tried to do is make sure that our average donor is giving us, $30, $35 instead of $100 or $200, because we want to spread that out and get more people involved. And we've actually had, it's really kind of cool, we've actually had 25,000 individual donors to the party this year. I think our previous record was about 6,000. So 4 times as many people are participating through fundraising this year as we've had in the past. Tens of thousands of volunteers, and of course, just everybody going out and talking to the friends and families and coworkers and colleagues.
So I've come off the road. I've been in Iowa. I've been in Nevada. I've been in Ohio. I've been in Michigan. One of the themes is from talking to state party chairmen like yourself is the polling numbers that they're doing as a state party seem to show a better scenario for the president than what we're seeing in these national polls. I'm going to be down there on Saturday morning. You and I are going to campaign all morning and afternoon until we get to CPAC. I'm sure I'll witness the same thing on the ground that I have in these other states. Are people just spinning a good game, these state party chairmen, that, our internals are tighter, when actually it's more pessimistic? Or is it just like a tale of two cities here?
I think it is a tale of two cities. I'll tell you this, having helped run the state in North Carolina in 2016 for President Trump, we are significantly ahead in every poll of where we were in 2016 at this point in time in the race. And if you look at every one of our monthly or our even weekly tracking polls, we're ahead of where we were in 2016. We won North Carolina by about 3.5 points. I'm expecting to have an amazing level of turnout. And I'll say this, I've been doing all of our county events all across the state. I'm scheduled on October 24th to actually hit my 100th county out of 100. So I'm going to be able to pull the full Grassley, here in North Carolina. But every single place we go, the turnout is absolutely through the roof. We've had Donald Trump here 5 weeks in a row. We've had his family members, Eric and Don Jr. and Laura. We've got Ivanka in. And every single time they're showing up, we're not just getting a couple dozen people. We're getting thousands of people that are showing up for the family members. We're getting 15, 20,000 people that are showing up for the president at these airport events that we're doing. And the enthusiasm, I've never seen it.
I've never seen it before. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. And I was able to talk to Don Jr. the other day and relay like what we've seen at our CPACs and what I've seen on the bus. I have never seen this. I remember, look, you and I both have great respect for President Bush, and he obviously won the presidency twice, and we both did a lot of presidential events. The enthusiasm for President Trump is higher, partially because the country has about 45% of this country is embracing some pretty radical policies, and it scared a lot of people. So the reason I think that your numbers kind of come together late is because it's a lot of non-political people. Let's face it, non-Republicans, especially in a state like North Carolina, who Trump, the president, appeals to, who aren't normally in the game.
Yeah, and we had an event last night, Black Voters Matter. It was an absolutely great event in Raleigh. We had hundreds of people that showed up for a series of speeches from civil rights leaders, from Black leaders across North Carolina and the country. And it was great because one of the organizers was telling me well over half the people there were not Republicans. They were coming to check it out. They have heard President Trump's message. They've seen what he has done for minority communities, not just here in North Carolina, but all across the country, lifting up the economy, creating more opportunities, more jobs for blacks, more jobs for Hispanics, more jobs for women than have ever been created in the country. I'll tell you this: you and I saw each other with your wonderful wife Mercy at the White House when Donald Trump was accepting his nomination, and I was telling one of the guys that I was with, this is a speech that could have been given by President Obama. This is a speech that could have been given by President Clinton. It's a visionary speech, and his love for America comes through in such a big way. And it's not surprising to me that we had so many crossover Democrats, so many unaffiliated voters that were breaking for us. When we look at the voters that were undecided 2 weeks before the election, they broke over 60-40 for Donald Trump. And I think we're going to see the same thing.
Yes, what's strange is the incumbent president usually does not get those late deciders, those undecided voters, because they've had more than 4 years, a presidential campaign in 4 years, to look at this person already. And if they're not already in their camp, there's a greater percentage likelihood they're going to jump to the challenger. The problem for Vice President Biden is he's not really a challenger. He is the walking personification and epitome of the Washington, D.C. swamp establishment. He represents everything that people actually don't like about what's going on in the country. So in the weird way, it's almost like President Trump is the outsider still.
Yeah, and I love that his talking point is he's done more in 47 months than Joe Biden did in 47 years.
I think he did. That's wrong. I think he did more in 47 minutes than Biden did in 47 years.
Yeah, but if you look at his record over the last 4 years of promises made, promises kept, we talk about how he unleashed the American economy. He rebuilt the military, and he has put America first with the trade deals, with NAFTA and everything else. He's done everything he said he was going to do. And on top of that, he's laid out a much bolder vision for the next 4 years than Joe Biden has been able to scratch together with it, because Joe just keeps saying, I'm going to take us back to 2015, 2016. And that is really not where America wants to go.
Well, remember, Obama was one of the most enduringly unpopular presidents. He was historical in the sense that he was the first black president. I think people liked that concept. They just didn't like what happened in their lives when his policies, his left-wing policies, were implemented. Mr. Chairman, I just want you to know, so as I said, Iowa, Nevada, Ohio, Michigan, all these states, it is a theme that it seems like the president is doing better on the ground, and in the numbers that they're seeing. They're meeting their benchmarks with volunteers, door knocks, phone calls, etc. You see the same thing in North Carolina. It could be that the same scenario plays out again. We're heading into Election Day. The New York Times and CNN are telling us that Joe Biden has a 98, 99% chance of victory. And underneath that, there's this shallowness to their numbers, and that the president is able to win again. I can't believe that they're so stupid as to be doing it this way all over again. I guess maybe they think they're going to demoralize us. Is that the reason why they're lying about these numbers?
It really has to be a push. Every time I see the crowds, I feel great. Every time I see our polls, I feel great. Every time I see the news, I feel like, oh man, are we doing what we need to be doing? And there's such a fundamental disconnect between what is going on all of those networks every single day, 24 hours a day. It's not even just the 6 o'clock news anymore. It is a full 24-hour news cycle that is bent on taking down the president. And one of the things that I love about Republican voters is, in the blue collar voters that President Trump is attracting, we don't have time to sit around and watch TV. People are working. People have jobs, people have families, and they really are focused far more on taking care of their families than they are in watching these news cycles. And they're not participating, in all of these things until late. But this is a clarification election. I mean, you really, truly just have to look at what President Trump has put forward over the last 4 years and his vision for the next 4 years, as opposed to what Joe Biden has done for the last 47 and what he proposes to do the next 4 years. And as soon as people pay attention to that here in North Carolina, I think, frankly, all around the country, it's going to be a big night.
Okay, so go to conservative.org, get your seats, reserve your spot for CPAC North Carolina, which will be in Greensboro, North Carolina. It's going to be at the Hideaway at Crooked Creek. So get on the website and get it reserved. after I give this speech in Pennsylvania, which our Vice Chairman Charlie Giroux has set up, then I fly and go immediately down to North Carolina. Here's the big question. How early are we starting on Saturday? It better be early.
I'll tell you what, your plane's going to land about 8:15. We're going to leave the airport at 8:30, and we're going to have you on stage by 9 o'clock. It's going to be a fantastic series of events, and we're very ready to roll out the North Carolina red carpet for you.
If you serve me Starbucks coffee, I'm going to turn around and get back on the plane. I want regular coffee. I want non-political coffee. Okay, Michael?
Absolutely, we'll do it.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us on CPAC Live. More importantly, thanks for the great work you're doing. I encourage everybody to help you. North Carolina is critical in this effort to reelect the president. And of course, as you said, reelect Tom Tillis. We need Senator Tillis back in the Senate so we can pick 2 more Supreme Court openings. I predicted we'd have one this year. It was late in the year, but we did get that opening. And I think we're going to have 2 more. And I think what's amazing, if President Trump gets 4 more years, or as I get corrected often by grassroots activists, when he gets 4 more years, he literally, I think, will pick a majority of the court. We really have, I don't even know when the last time that occurred, a really long time ago. So history is in the making right now. Michael Whatley, thank you for what you're doing. Thank you to everybody who tuned in today. We'll keep you updated on what's going on the campaign trail. What an interesting month of October it's going to be for our country. And I do want to say this, pray for America. There's a lot at stake in this election. Thanks a lot for watching.